Good morning, world. I am Judy, your web-based therapist, making therapy accessible and convenient for our clients in Florida and New York, and of course, sharing information worldwide. Today, I want to take a moment and talk about I haven't really come up with the title, but I don't know if I want to say 5 types of mental health issues or 5 causes of mental health issues or 5 things that can lead to mental health issues. I don't have the title yet, but I realized that I couldn't just keep waiting for a title to record the video. So here we are recording the titleless video. So yeah. But before I get into that, I want to take a moment and say thank you. If you are subscribed, thank you so much for being a part of our awesome world. If you're not yet subscribed, please take a moment and click the subscribe button below so you can join all this awesomeness. And remember to tick the bell so that you are notified when I post new videos so you don't miss anything. And of course, if you'd like to purchase 1 or 3 of my books, there's also a link below that will take you to a site that shows you all your different options of places where you could get 1 or 3 of my books. Okay, let me get back to it. The first thing I want to talk about is a situational mental health issue. It's when something happens that triggers, or that could be where the mental health issue may be a response to that something that happens. One of the more common ones we know of is depression and grief. Usually, or a lot of times when someone is going through grief, they may experience depression. And we even have as one of the parts of one of the phases of grief or stages of grief is depression. Sometimes it could be maybe it's a few weeks, maybe it's a few months, and sometimes it may be a little bit longer. But situational mental health issues are usually a response or something that happens after something else that triggered the mental health issue. And one of the things that make them different is that usually, hopefully, when the situation that triggered the mental health issue is resolved, the mental health issue will also be resolved. Another example is that sometimes you may be going through some life changes, or something may be happening in your life that triggers an anxiety. And when that situation is resolved, hopefully that anxiety is resolved. That does not mean that while you're in the thick of it, while things are happening, that you can't or you shouldn't get help, because getting help will help with managing the symptoms, with dealing with the issue. But very often what tends to happen is when the situation that triggered or that led to the mental health issue is resolved, the mental health issue hopefully is also resolved or will soon after be resolved. 2 is a medical or a medicinal trigger. There are a lot of medical conditions that can mess with the chemistry of the body, and that can trigger a mental health issue. A lot of times when a person one of the things that we often talk about is people who are dealing with chronic pain can often experience a depression associated with the medical issue that they are experiencing. So a lot of medical issues can trigger a mental health issue. So that's why when you see something, if something feels unusual, if something is not feeling normal, it's important to reach out and say something, talk to your doctor and discuss this new weird feeling that you're not used to, because it's not you, you're not weird, something is actually happening. Of course, the medicinal part of it, when you're listening to a commercial about a medication and the person talks about all these great benefits of this, that, and the other. When you take this, you could go to the moon, you this, you that, right? And then they go to blah, 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 yada, yada, all these things that we can happen to you as a side effect of this product. But we still encourage you to take the product, and you can't hear anything that they're saying because they're talking so fast and we don't. Yeah. One of the side effects that often is in that list is depression. I shared a video a while back where I was one of those people who had a medicinal depression, where I was put on something that was supposed to help with pain I was experiencing. And in addition to making the pain even worse, it was like there was a depression in that box. So the moment I got that thing, it was like it flipped the switch and like, hey, depression. And it took a while Oh, well, yeah, it did. It took a while because at first when I noticed it, I started doing, all the stuff that I would work with my clients on. And what I realized was that it helped, but not to the level that I needed it to. And when I stopped the medication, since it was making this my pain worse instead of better, I ended up stopping the medication. And when I stopped the medication, as it gradually worked its way out of my body, my efforts, all the things that I was doing to combat the depression, felt a lot more. I was seeing a lot more results from them. They were more effective. And of course, eventually, as the medication worked its way out of my body, the depression kind of, thankfully, went with it. So it is something that can happen. And a lot of times a person may not everyone is as fortunate as to be able to get off the medication that is leading to the depression. So this is why sometimes you will find that you have one medication for this particular issue, and then you have another medication for the side effect of that issue. So a lot of times people who are on medication for other things that may have depression as a side effect will have an antidepressant to help balance out the depressive effects of the medication that they're taking. So when you see something, or if you experience something, if you feel something is not right, if you feel something is not within your norm, speak up, say something. You're not weird. Something's not wrong with you. Something is actually happening. It's not you, it's the situation. The third is chronic mental illness. Chronic mental illness, some of the ones that people are more familiar with are things like bipolar disorder or schizophrenia. There are a number of them, but those are some of the more common ones. Chronic mental illness is something that once you develop it, you essentially have it and manage it as you go through the rest of life. And one big issue with chronic mental illness is that sometimes when people will get on medication and they're doing all their treatments, that is all the treatments and that is helping, they will stop the treatments because they're feeling better. They're not being handicapped by symptoms. They're able to go about their lives, and they stop the treatment. And what often happens when people stop the treatment that is helping them live their full, engaged, regular life that they have, that then the symptoms come back because it was the treatment that they were doing that was keeping the symptoms at bay. Chronic mental illness, depending on what the illness is that you have, can have different causes, different sources, different types, different levels. But the one thing that we know about chronic mental illness is that if you have it, it is important that you continue with your treatment, even when on the days when you feel great, when it feels like, hey, I am back to my normal self. I am back to my pre-symptom self. You still have to keep doing your treatments because it's the treatment that is helping you be back to your pre-symptom norm. For environmental, that again can be various things. One thing that recently we were talking about was situations that occur in the workplace, especially depression, anxiety. If you are in a toxic environment, it could trigger a lot of different mental health issues. If you are in an unhealthy environment, it could trigger a lot of mental health issues. And sometimes the environment can be home, the environment can be society in general. Over the last few years, we as the human race, as a world, were in the midst of an environmental crisis. And that's why I would tell people, is people that had teenagers and people that had young adults, and I would tell them, no, they're not okay, because teenagers and young adults, they were not okay. And a lot of them are still not okay. Some parents didn't want to accept that, but what we all went through as a society, as a world, that was an environmental crisis that impacted a lot of people's mental health. And that's why a lot of mental health service usage was pretty high. I haven't seen any studies saying how talking to as to the usage, giving specific numbers, but I know that just from what I saw and what I heard from other clinicians, mental health, there was a significant increase in usage. That was because we were all experiencing that stress, and it was triggering issues with mental health, a lot of anxiety, and a lot of depression. Being in a toxic work environment can be an environment that leads to mental health issues. A lot of times, people, minorities, women, Black people, or other people of color can experience certain situations in the workplace that can trigger mental health issues, especially that anxiety, especially that depression. So when you are in, sometimes you get into these situations and you are not sure what is happening, but you know that something is different. You know that you're not feeling like yourself. It's probably because something is happening. Sometimes a person grows up in that environment. When you grow up in that environment that is impacting your mental health, sometimes it's harder to realize that something's happening because, this is life. This is how it is. But just because that's how you grew up, that's how it has been, doesn't mean that that's how it's supposed to be. Children who grow up in abusive environments, that's an environmental setting that can later cause mental health issues. Actually, it can cause mental health issues while the child is still in that environment. The last one is a traumatic experience. Witnessing something, going through something, experiencing something. The trauma may be physical, but sometimes it's not always physical. Anytime you are exposed to trauma, you don't always know how your body, how you as a whole, as a human, as a person are going to respond to it. And sometimes it's important to expect and anticipate that there may be a response and pay attention. Don't just dismiss things. Sometimes you witness something and people have a tendency to want to be okay. Oh, I'm fine. I'm good. I'm physically okay. Therefore, I'm good. A lot of times the physical okay does not necessarily explain what is going on the inside. Just because you look like you're not bleeding, you're not hurting, you think that you're okay, but that doesn't take into account the actual experience and how your body and how your brain are processing what you experience. And those things can lead to issues with mental health. You'll meet someone, young, healthy person, and they tell you that this person has not left their house for 30 years. And you wonder, how is a healthy person not leaving their house for 30 years? Something may have happened. Traumatic experiences are a really good trigger, or something that is very likely to trigger a mental health issue. So if you've been through something traumatic, don't just dismiss it when you notice certain things. Don't just think that hey, you know what? It's just right now. That's just for today. Take a moment, speak up, get help, address it. Okay, this has been super long, so let me do a quick recap. 1, situational. Situational is when something happened, your body responds. You're going through grief, meaning you experience a loss, your body responds with a part of the response, maybe depression, or you're going through some other life changes and part of the response is anxiety. Medical is when something is going on inside your body. Maybe you're sick, maybe you're in pain, maybe you're whatever the medical situation may be that is causing whatever the mental health issue may be. And medicinal is when the mental health issue is a side effect of a medication that you are taking. For example, you're taking this medication and one of the side effects is depression and it comes full blown. 3, chronic mental illnesses are things that you have, they stay with you even when the symptoms disappear because you are doing your treatment. You still have to keep doing your treatment because it's the treatment that's helping you keep the symptoms at bay. Environmental is where your environment, your surroundings, maybe your job, maybe your family, maybe your community, something is happening around you that is triggering that mental health issue. So 1, you can try to get out, you can work to get out of that environment or figure out how to address it, but don't just leave it there and expect that, maybe it'll go away. And finally, a traumatic experience. That means it could be physical, it could be emotional, it could be all sorts of stuff that can impact or influence or lead to a mental health issue. So when you see that happening, take the time, address it, ask for help, and get the help. As always, if you or someone you know happens to be going through something that's more than you can handle, please remember that there are professionals like myself who are available, able, and willing to help, and are even providing remote services who can assist with whatever you may have going on. So please figure out who those people are in your community so that if you need them, you can reach out and get the help that you need. And that is all we have for today. Good morning, world. Have an awesome day.